Welcome to HBYOB Brewcast, where we get together and talk about beer, drinking beer, making beer, all kinds of things about beer. Tonight, you have that eye of the tiger in you. We're talking home brewing competitions. So stay tuned. Tonight, eye of the tiger in you. We're talking home brewing. And this is Easy Kill. Welcome to HBYOB Brewcast. Tonight, my co-host, Chris Allen. How are you doing tonight, Chris?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing good. It's very warm in my room where we podcast. I have to turn all the fans and air conditioning off so that there's no noise. So I'm burning up. So I'm ready to drink beer. What kind of beer do you have tonight?
I have this wonderful light lager that I want to introduce to everybody this evening. But we'll get into more of that here in a little bit.
All right. Okay, tonight, because tonight is brewing competitions, we decided to bring our worst beers to the table. So Joey Brumley, the owner of HBYOB.com, the homebrew store here in Dayton, what are you bringing to the table for your non-competitive beer?
I decided to bring an oldie but a goodie. What you know about that?
I knew you were bringing the table polish to the table.
It does look like a table now.
It does. I'm telling you, if there was wax in there for a table, I would agree. And I'm not sure it wouldn't clean a table.
It might.
I've spilled quite a few, so I would say I don't remember any.
Now, Chris, I know you have been not drinking because of your, I don't know, you're training for the Olympics or something. So you're back on the training, off the training? Are you definitely drinking?
This is all I'm going to allow myself for this evening.
That is it. Okay. That is it. Okay.
This is it.
I'm doing two things. I figured if you're going with the worst, it might as well be the best.
What are you talking about? See, this is the best. See?
You're going. We both went Best Light because there's no worse beer than Best Light.
That's what I'm talking about.
I took a second step here, and I went because Chris believes in always the best can art. I thought, what's the opposite of the best can art? So I went with pub beer, which might be the plainest can, but that actually makes it look cool in my opinion. But so I'm going to bang out a little best right now and pour that in I know I was told we're an adult, but I have my hustler pint glass there.
There you go.
I can't believe I poured mine into a glass. I think mine was supposed to be served straight out of the can, but I poured mine into it.
I do agree. All you did was waste detergent because you have to wash that glass twice.
Well, they say if a good beer glass, you shouldn't be using detergent on, but
this tastes like water.
That is true. I don't. Now Joey says that I'm really good. I try to rinse my glasses right away, rinse it in real hot water. And then I just put them back in their fridge.
Mine's foaming up like Dawn dish soap on the
Look at that.
Woo!
I think I was better off not seeing it. I couldn't have even known this stuff was green.
I think Best has this much head so you can't smell it. I think that's the whole point. If we put enough head on there, you won't smell it. But I have to admit, I bought a 12-pack of this the other day because I knew we had to do it for this show. I mowed grass in 94-degree temperature the other day. I got to tell you, when you're mowing grass and it's 92, there's no bad beer. I'm sorry. I don't think there is.
I'd probably plow through a 6-pack of those if I was mowing grass.
I drank like 3 of these Best Lights.
Oh, yeah.
And every time I opened one, I went, why don't I just go in the house and get me something good? But no, I went ahead. Because I have a refrigerator. I have a refrigerator outside in a little thing by my deck. So when I'm grilling out or whatever, and I've learned if I keep the cheap beer out there, friends and family will drink that. The good stuff, because no one walks in the house.
Miller High Life is my favorite lawnmower beer. Beer's like in a funnel, so you can just.
I'm a Miller Genuine Draft MGD. I
had that. I always like the champagne of beers.
It is the champagne. No, that's High Life. Miller High Life is different than MGD. So I'm a Miller guy. So I've kind of kept up with all that.
Now,
Milwaukee's Best. What brewing company is that? I'm not even.
That's Pabst, isn't it?
I thought so.
Miller Brewing Company. So this
probably all merge.
This probably has a little Miller. This has a little Miller Lite in it.
Mine's made in Milwaukee, as all it says. Old English 800 Brewing Company.
That's it. They actually put their name on that.
They did.
Yep. Except no substitutes.
Except no substitute. I'll have my pub beer here in a minute because I figured this Best Light won't last long.
Man,
it is just a hair past water.
My stomach's already turning.
Yep. Like, man.
Well,
I don't even remember the last time I had one of these. We're going to get into competition
beers. And stuff which I know nothing about, so I'll get educated today. But I'm going to tell you my experience of going local and taking a growler into a growler bar and getting my growler served. Is this something either one of you've done? Have you gone somewhere and had a growler filled where they have just a handful of unique beers?
At a brewery, but never. I think what you're referring to.
Right. Chris, have you ever gone to a gas station, walked in with your growler and had them fill you up with a craft beer?
No, I have not. If there's one that does that, though, point me in that direction and I'll give it a shot.
There's a brand new one that's right off the highway where I live. I get off. I went in with the expectation of it would be a price issue where I thought, okay, if I'm going to be able to get some warp wing, 32 ounces, maybe $6, $7, couple of dollars or something like that. That was not the case. The cheapest one was $10.75 for 32 ounces, which is just 3 beers. So, fairly expensive, but they were unique. And I talked to, this was a Saturday and they had in air quotes, a person there representing their, growler refill thing. And he was there to help people and they were giving samples away that day and everything. So, he said these were beers that these breweries could not afford or just did not bottle or can. So the only way you were going to get them was at a bar somewhere or like this, where you could fill a growler. And, it was kind of unique. I mean, again, I couldn't even tell you now the name of it. It was a lager, that was, pretty basic beer. It wasn't bad.
$10 for a basic beer.
Yeah, I know. Trust me. I thought that 6% alcohol, a little alcohol-y, but it was good. It was just a basic lager. You have made stuff just as good. So, I mean,
great.
But I think if you walk into a place with your growler, you got to fill it regardless what the price said. I wasn't going to turn around with my growler. But that being said, though, the woman charged me for my growler that I brought in, and I didn't realize that till I got home. So I actually paid $17 because she charged me for a growler that I stole from somebody.
That don't make me feel so bad. Last time I went to a place and got a growler filled, it was $20, but it was a gallon. I mean, it was a growler. It was 20 with the jug. That's probably not too. That's a lot more than you think.
Yeah.
I got it home and
the tea to
it didn't seem like
128 ounces of beer. When you open a growler, you kind of got to commit to drinking that, don't you?
That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
It was a lot of beer, and I ended up not drinking it all. And unfortunately, once you start pouring, as long as you leave it in the growler not opened, it'll stay probably.
Am I doing the math right? Isn't that 12 beers roughly? Almost
I don't know
15
math.
Beers.
A
gallon's 128 ounces, right, Chris?
Right. That's 128. Yeah, 128 ounces.
So you're just over 12 beers.
Yeah, it was a lot of beer. Like I said, it was more than I could drink in one night.
Well, no, because 12 times 12 is 144. So you're just shy of that's like 11 beers.
Yeah. No.
All right.
I think I'm going with Mark. I got to carry it. Hold on. I got to carry over the one.
Right. If it's 120.
Oh, no. I don't care.
64, don't care. Gallons, 128. 10 beers is 12 ounces is 120. Chris, I think your math is off.
I had to carry over the one. And it's 10 beers and 8 ounces. 10 and a half.
All right, 10 and a half.
No, 10 and 3/4.
I guess I shouldn't be drinking when I'm doing math.
10 and 3/4.
Told you.
All right. For $20. Now, did you get that?
Isn't that what Chris said?
Did you go to a bar? Did you go to a bar, or where'd you get your gallon filled at?
It was at a local craft brewery.
Yeah, they can do them over at where else do they do them at? What's that
Pretty much
brewing
all of
place? What's that brewing place that we were talking about going to? The one where you can brew your own stuff, but they only do extract.
Oh, I forget the name of them.
You know what I'm talking about over in Kettering or wherever.
I do know. Yeah, but I forgot.
Now,
yeah, but I know they do growler fills there.
The other place I've done it, they did their growler fill with just a regular, just a regular spigot. This guy, this was an enclosure. They put the bottle, he controlled it up, and then he hit a button that pressurized something, then he closed the lid, and then hit a button and said how many ounces and walked away, and it filled it without any, much head or anything. I mean, I'm not sure that affected the flavor. I think that was more for show than necessarily.
Probably count. It probably keeps the carbonation from getting out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So
then he used the highly sophisticated electrical tape to seal that for me, so I couldn't take a sample on the way home.
I think that has to do with, since I am a little bit in the know, has to do with the open container laws. And if there's that electrical tape down there, it's a lot easier to prove that you weren't drinking it on the way home than
that's right. Right. So. I wasn't drinking this, officer. He shorted me when I bought it. There was only 16 ounces in here.
Yeah.
So, but it wasn't bad beer. So I noticed, like I said, that there were a lot of fruit flavors. They were just unique flavors. I'm not a big fruit beer guy, so I went with the one that looked the most basic, and it was just a lager. But I was a little bummed. I paid $5.50 for a growler that I brought in. So, but that was okay. I think there was a one warped wing. There was a hairless hare. One was a Cincinnati brewery, and then the other, I just can't even remember the names. They were just unique, beers. So, hey, it was something different, something to try. But, I'd rather buy a 6-pack of something from Warped Wing than, buy that. So.
Oh, sure.
All right. We're going to get into competitions tonight because I know a lot of home brewers. That's, they get into it for some of that. But I guess I've only heard rumors. I heard that our co-host entered a beer or two here at a recent contest. I have heard a lot other than I know you were doing it. So I'm going to start there. And that is, have either one of you entered a beer into a competition? And if you had, what were your results? How did it go? And I just kind of want to get an idea of your experience. So whichever one of you would like to start, preferably the one who entered a beer into a competition.
Well, we've both done it, unfortunately. Or fortunately. I mean, I think...
Fortunately or unfortunately.
Well, I think like in both cases, I think they've at least been learning experiences for the most part. And they've been kind of eye-opening to, I guess, the other side to home brewing. And we can get into the politics and all that shit here in a little bit. But at the very least, both competitions that Joey and I have entered beers into, I think they've been very very, very good learning experiences. But at the same time, I mean, we've kind of gotten the hang of or started to understand how, the quote unquote professionals judge beer. And I think that was really the big takeaway for me, especially on this last go around. The first competition that we did last year down at with the Bloatarians last year scored fairly well. I think I got like a 27, which is like pretty decent.
What is the score? I've heard that before. What is the scoring rank? What is the scoring for beer?
It's like the high is like a 50, and that's like
perfect, which never
absolute perfect. But if
you're in the 0 to 50 scale,
and they tier it by tens. It's like basically if you score anything less than like 14, it's basically like you probably send them like skunked beer.
I got you. So it's one of those, if you can put your name on the application, you're going to get at least 15 points.
Thereabouts. I mean, unless you send them some stuff that's infected, you're probably going to get over a 50.
You might score a 50 nowadays.
Yeah.
Infected, as long as it's in the right category.
Exactly. Right, because obviously that's the problem with tasting of anything. It is obviously, it's just an opinion. I mean, now some people say, but it's a beer judge's opinion.
Highly Google.
It's still an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
No.
All right. So, okay, but all right, Chris. So you entered a beer here, within the last couple of weeks, correct?
Right. Yeah, we had the competition down at Ryan Guys. Both Joey and I sent in submissions for that.
Do you know how many people submitted a home brew for that?
I think the last I checked the website, it was just short. I think it was like around 90 entries total. Probably somewhere like 90, 100, somewhere in there.
So wait a minute. So one guy's drinking 90 beers?
No,
Jesus,
they get a
job.
panel. They get a panel of judges that go through. It's probably, I would assume it's probably between like 15 and 20 people that are doing all of this.
So they're judging you on your beer and your beer only. So they're not comparing one to the other. It is truly just, here's our score for that beer.
They give you your individual score. It's either 2 or 3 judges, depending on the competition itself, and they go through and they run your beer and they test it against the metrics that are for that specific style, and then they score it.
And your score was?
My score was a 20.5. Which was a good, quote unquote. I was just in the good range for my style, because I had.
And did they tell you why, or?
Yeah, they give you the numerical score. They quantify it, and then if you can read their handwriting, they give you notes as to why they gave you the score that they did. Whether it's off flavors, or if it was undercarbonated, overcarbonated, color wasn't right, too hoppy, whatever. They put in their right.
When you submit your beer, do you tell them what you were trying to do? I mean, are you telling them, hey, this is a such and such type beer? This is a wheat something amber. What I'm saying is, are they judging it based on what you tell them you were trying to do, or are they just saying overall taste? This is what you get.
No, you submit it under a specific style. So for mine, I think I'd put them under like a specialty IPA. And I'd given them notes as to the things that I put in the beer, or the flavors that they should expect, and then they judge it off of that.
All right. Now, Joey, did you enter a beer in that same show, or did you do a show previous?
I did it with the one at Ryan Geist. Did that one, and then I did Beer and Sweat last year.
Now, as an owner of a homebrew store, is competition brewing? I mean, do you hear this a lot? I mean, are a lot of your customers entering their beers, or is it just a small number of people that are trying to perfect brewing a homebrew?
I mean, we definitely have customers who do it. I would say the ones that do, that's kind of one of the main motives of why they brew. Others are probably similar to like me and Chris, where they're homebrewers, but they do competitions occasionally. It's more for fun than anything else. And then you've got the people who just have absolutely no intentions of doing it whatsoever. Now,
Chris, the score you got, you say you learned stuff. What now? Did you learn? Are you going to then take this recipe that you sent to them and adjust it and try to make it better? Or are you like, well, okay, I still liked it and I'm going to go on and try something different? Where do you go from here with the information they gave you?
For this particular one, there were some things that I wanted to tweak about the recipe already, and then the notes that the judges gave me kind of confirmed that this is what I should do on the next go around. And so Joey and I already bitched at Joey for like a half hour, like after I got the scores, to say that I probably need to make some changes here and there. So I'll probably wind up brewing that again within the next month or so and incorporating those changes.
All right. So what you'll do is you'll take the same recipe that you entered and then adjust it based on what they told you and try to perfect, and obviously, now can you enter it again and see if it improved, or or do you have to wait a whole year? Is this something they do once a year? Are there brew contests every weekend somewhere, and who puts them on?
We could look into it. I just happened to, I think I was talking with Joey maybe a couple months ago, and I just Googled homebrew contests in Ohio, and that one popped up. So I'm fairly certain that, especially now with it being summertime, most of these like either local breweries or breweries that we could probably drive through are going to be having competitions throughout the summertime, because we're already talking about going back to Beer and Sweat, and that's in just a few months. So I mean, it would be something that I would wind up submitting again, and and tweaking. But when it comes to tweaking, I'm not tweaking it just because the judges said so. It was more just they confirmed the things that I wanted to tweak about it.
You kind of knew ahead of time you needed to do something different.
Yeah. There were a couple, like when I sent it in, it was like, I'm kind of hoping that, the bitterness mellows out. I'm kind of hoping that the carbonation stays, it's at the right carbonation. It just didn't work out that way. And so when I got the notes, I was like, I know I didn't do that. I kind of had a feeling they were going to say that. So it's not that big of a deal.
Now, Joey, back to you. When it comes to I guess back to, being a homebrew store, is this the kind of thing a homebrew store could put on a contest? I mean, where do you find judges? Is this something you can sponsor or anyone can do? Or are these real specific shows like, Westminster Dog Show, or something like that, where no, you're only going to these things because that's where the best show up, or are there just kind of open contest places where you can go?
So the Homebrewers Association is a great website to visit that'll give you a great list of homebrewing competitions. Anyone can essentially put one on. However, most of them are judged by, I get this wrong every time, BJMCP. Did I get that right, Chris?
I think it's just BJCP.
BJC. Well, they're certified beer judges.
Yeah.
Most competitions have the judges that will do your competitions.
Now, again, because to me, homebrew is such a, it's the flavor profiles. I know it's like dogs. I just look at a mutt and think, a cute little dog. And then you watch the Westminster Dog Show and, they still look like cute little dogs, but obviously there is a judge / expert in that breed. So, I mean, where do you go to become an expert on lager or an expert on wheat beer or something like that?
There's actually their website is actually, I'm going to look it up now because I'm laughing at the pieces.
I've had beer where people go, this is a great beer, and I drink, I go, no, to me, it wasn't that great. So obviously, does that make me a bad judge, or I just didn't like that profile? I mean,
you were right, Chris. It is Beer Judge Certification Program. It actually is a program where you pay, you take a test. I think you even go into a place and they give you beers and you're supposed to pick out.
I say we do it.
Think I'm good as far as the beer judging goes. Although it would be pretty cool to do, but I don't know.
Come on.
It would.
Who doesn't want that certificate? Who doesn't want that certificate behind them on the wall while they're podcasting?
I thought there was like an exam and everything that's associated with, like, you have to know your shit about it. Like, you have to be able to figure out like what the. I think you have to be able to pick out what the range of starting gravity is supposed to be for like a lager.
All right.
You would have to know that.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to know. The test is more knowing just overall beer knowledge.
Okay.
I would have a hard time doing it just because, like, I'd be the one that would go to a beer judging competition and I'd have to judge like a sour, and I'm like, oh, this sucks. And it'd be like the next judge would be like, oh, 40.
I know. But okay.
And I'd be like, 3.
I know you, Joey. The idea of you being judged in anything doesn't seem to be something that high on your list. You are pretty much this is my beer, I don't give a shit what you think kind of guy. So, why did you do it? Just really to learn, or were you looking for a pat on the back, or were you just, I'm trying to see what you get out of as a home brewer.
I guess I am not a competition. I'm not a ribbon trophy.
Oh, I would agree.
Guy. I'm really not. Back to homebrew for me. Right. So I will never be a world-class beer winning machine, competition winning machine. I can promise you that. But I got it because honestly, the beer and sweat was probably some of the most fun I've had. I had a blast. And for me, it's more just a community. Anytime you get to talk with home brewers, none that I've ever met are stuck up or anything like that. So you get to go try each other's beers. I mean, what other event can you go to? It's all day, start drinking at noon and get to hang out with homebrewers. So for me, it's more, I put a beer in a competition, but hey, how's yours? And just communicate with everybody.
No, not to be a beer snob, but this pub beer is actually pretty good. Have both of you have had it?
Yeah, I've tried it before.
10 Barrel Brewing Company in Oregon. It's actually pretty, it's, back to lawnmower beer. It's pretty, I could drink it.
That's what it looks like.
Now,
I don't know if I could drink this one again.
I know, but you will. Chris, I know, I know Chris is two things here. So a beer judge or a fantasy football expert, which is harder? Which would you put more in? Meaning, my point would be fantasy sports. There's a winner and a loser. If you know what you're doing and you're playing, you win enough. You've proven yourself. Beer is still a taste, and you have to have a palate for that, and that changes. But which would you consider? Which would you rather be, a fantasy expert or a beer judge? Certified beer judge.
Certified beer judge. I would still rather be an NFL analyst because, like you were just saying, or like a fantasy football analyst, because I think there is too much subjectivity when it comes to being a brew judge, to the point where I do think that some of the hobby portion of us being homebrewers kind of gets lost in the shuffle when it comes to doing these competitions. Like,
right.
When we went down and we did both competitions, it's like, okay, yeah, this beer that I put in, I was off by a couple of gravity points here and there, or I didn't have the right bitterness level, or it didn't match it's the color, the SRM value was a little bit off, or,
right.
Just these little things here and there that it's just like, oh, okay, well, I understand your opinion of the beer because it didn't match the style. But again, it's like, we're homebrewers. Right. We're not brewing at a brewery. We're not doing it under these like super controlled circumstances. I mean, it's a hobby.
And I think beer people listening to us, because we're a beer podcast, would probably not understand maybe what fantasy sports have to do with it. But what's unique about both of these hobbies are, there's multiple ways to go about it. There are multiple recipes to success, but at the same time, it's fun. And what did you get out of it? Again, I've seen it a million times with fantasy sports where people post their team and they want an expert to tell them, judge my team. How is my team the best you've ever seen? But it does, that really, what he says doesn't really matter. It's still what you did. So, right. Joey, back to you and your customers that come in. Are those customers that are into this part of it? Are they pickier about their ingredients? Are they pickier about the equipment they're using than just an average brewer like, I would be?
Oh, by far. I mean, they're trying to, with consistency and ingredients, back to a lot of these people are tweaking recipes that they've scored well with in the past. So they're always tweaking a recipe to get at those next couple of points. So they are they'll say, give me the darker grains, crush those separately because I want to add them later in the mash. They're always doing, I don't want to say kooky things, but things that can just step their beer up that much more. They're trying to be very consistent with their product versus someone like me at times where it's like, oh shit, I forgot this or I forgot that. And you just throw it in later. Right. And, they are taking it a lot more serious, which is good. Don't get me wrong. I would say the best way to sum up why I think a beer homebrewing competition is pretty cool. I shoot pool. My last pool league, I'm in a pool league, and I shoot every single week, and I show up every single week loyally. It ended 3 weeks ago, and I've talked with a few guys from the pool team, like, hey, you want to get together on Tuesday anyway and shoot a few games? Sure. You know how many times it's happened? Never. So there is something to be said for a competition that makes you accountable. You show up, you enter. And I think that's probably the reason why I get into the competitions, because it makes me accountable, makes me show up, and because I know where I'm going to be during beer and sweat.
Now you've said that a couple times. So I guess one of you needs to explain to me what's taking place. When I take my beer, am I there to, are they going to drink it in front of me? Am I sampling beer myself? What is this in an arena, or is it in the back of a warehouse? What, I guess, paint me a picture. What's going on?
Go ahead, Chris.
Either one of you.
You go ahead.
So it's at the Marriott Hotel. I believe, I don't know what hotel, but it's at a hotel.
I think it was a Marriott.
It's in the Cincinnati area. The reason why I think me and Chris are intrigued to get into that one, because it's a keg only competition. So I like, even the beers that we just got scored on, me and Chris both got a few bottle, points. Right? Yeah, it was a bottle competition, so we bottled from our keg. So we lost a few points on our judging simply just because the beer was slightly undercarbonated. Back to, I'm not going to intentionally overcarbonate my beer just to bottle 2 beers for a competition.
Oh, right. You judge this, you judge.
So I'm not going to go out of my way to do that. just because I'm lazy and I don't
No,
like
you're not.
beer.
Again, I've known you your whole life. You, the fact that you even let someone judge something on you cracks me up.
Well, Chris was the one who twisted my arm.
I know, because your opinion of what someone's nobody's opinion of their opinion is funnier than Joey's. People's opinion mean nothing, and that's good. I'm not even saying that's a bad thing.
That's not true.
Oh,
so not true.
Whatever.
So anyway,
I love your beer.
The beer and sweat is a keg only competition. So
when you say keg, a 5-gallon corny, is that what we're talking?
They say a minimum of 2.5 gallons to try to bring.
Okay.
So it's intriguing to me because I'm not doing anything special. I'm not trying to fill bottles up. I'm not bottling in the first place. I truly am taking a few kegs. Last year it was 1 keg. I'm taking a keg out of my refrigerator to a competition. As long as I know it was more than halfway full, I'm good to go for the competition. So like in that case, I brewed a beer last year's competition, I brewed a beer that I actually scored a 37 on that beer, and it was hops that I oversold, a yeast that was expired, tap water. I took that competition.
37 sounds pretty good out of 50.
Yeah, I think it's excellent or something. Everyone was like, how did you place? Because I entered it in the IPA category, and I think that was probably the most intrigued category of all the categories. But yeah, showing how much I take competition seriously. I use tap water and overstock hops and expired yeast, and so I wasn't doing it to be a rebel or try to be a rebel. I just did it because, well, it was a beer I like to brew, and I don't like to let things go to waste. And it tasted.
And how many times have you brewed that beer again?
That's probably a beer I've probably honestly brewed 20 times now. It's my most brewed batch, but I didn't use the usual hop regiment that I usually use. I used a totally different hop. It was the same malt bill and same mash, same yeast, just a different. Right. No, I don't even think it was the same yeast because, like I said, it was an expired yeast, but it was just different hop variety.
And that was last year. So this year you enter a totally different. In this bottle contest, you entered a totally different beer.
So this year, I'm not the beer. This sounds so bad when I say this stuff. The beer that I entered in, I used organic malt, which once again, organic malt we offered at the store and it didn't sell. So I didn't want to let the organic malt go to waste. So I've been brewing with it, and I don't know. It's got like a cardboard taste to me. I'm not a fan of it whatsoever, but back to me not liking to let things go to waste. I wanted to do an any IPA that I brewed that I was very happy with, but I thought that was going to get into the specialty IPA, and so I didn't do that. So last minute, I ended up doing a beer that I didn't even like too much myself. So I was very satisfied when I got a 27 on that beer because even I wasn't a huge fan of it.
All right. So, Chris, the beer you entered this year, was that different than what you did a year ago? And what was your score a year ago?
My score a year ago was a.
That can looks awesome when you're drinking that.
The score I got did last year was a 27, and that one was the what was it called? Oh, kitchen sink, where we literally took like a little bit of like every single grain out of each grain bucket that Joey has, and then we made a beer out of it.
So this was a recipe you made up as you went, more or less.
Yeah, we literally just said, yeah, we'll just take everything and kind of throw it in there and see what happens.
Well, 27 is not bad either, I guess, right? Obviously, 25 is average, I'm guessing, if it's 0 to 50. Right. So, anything above a 25 is above average, right?
Yeah, I figured that'd be pretty good. I mean, especially when I entered it as a porter, but I had also added in just a ton of other stuff. Like afterwards, I put jalapenos in there. I put honey in there. I put
Fruity Pebbles.
Almost. I mean, that probably should have gone in there too. I mean, it was just a mess of everything, and I entered it as a porter. And again, because it doesn't match the porter style, I was walking around telling people that this is what I did to my beer, and they were like, "Yeah, you're gonna get like a 15." Right. So when I saw my score and it was a 27, I was like, "Well, it's not bad." Now, I could probably.
Once you enter your beers, are you watching them taste it, or do you enter it and
they kick you out?
Yeah. Okay, so so what do you do in the meantime? Are you walking around? Are there beers you can sample, or is this one of those where you drop off and you go out to lunch and come back later?
We were there in the morning to set up and like get our kegs like in the boxes or whatever, so they could be kept cold. Then after that, we just hung out in Cincinnati. We went over to Mad Tree Brewery, grabbed some lunch, sampled some beers over there, hung out there for a little bit. And then by the time we got back down to the hotel, all the rest of the other homebrewers that were there, they were doing a bottle sharing.
Now,
like just out there in the
You had a designated brewer to drive you around, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah,
okay.
Without a doubt.
Okay, I'm just making sure, you know, all that sampling and all. Hey, my kids will make fun. I mean, the drunkest they've ever seen Dad only drank samples. Those samples will kick your butt. After
enough of them. That's why we like going to, we'll go to like Ale Fest, you know, when they give you just a small little thing and like a whole bunch of tickets, and then we'll get, you know, have a race to see who finishes their tickets first. But it was this, I mean, after we got back to the hotel, all the other homebrewers were sitting there hanging out, doing bottle shares with either some of their stuff or other just, you know, rare beers that, you know, you just won't pick up at every single liquor store. And that was the real fun part, because that's when we got to just sit down, have some food, talk with the other brewers.
Now, are there real, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, when I say are there real breweries there, or real brewers, I mean, are these nothing but home brewers, or are there, you know, Hairless Hares or some of these smaller breweries having their beers there also tested?
From what I remember, it was nothing but home brewers. I don't think I met anybody like from an actual brewery. Did you, Joey?
But is that a stipulation? I mean, are they saying only this can enter these, Joey? Or maybe I'll ask Joey. I mean, can a you see, you know, I'll make up, you know, great big beer company B saying, you know, our beer won 97 blue ribbons in the something, you know, I mean, are those kind of competitions different than these home brewing competitions?
So most of the time, yeah. I mean, I don't see why a brewery couldn't enter a beer. However, it is more catered towards the home brewer. I do know there are competitions for breweries that they enter their beers into, and there's stipulations for those. One of the cool things I like about those is kind of like what I was said about the beer I entered. I scored a 37, which a lot of people told me was very, very good. Being my first competition, I just kind of laughed and said, I don't know. And someone was like, I won a silver in Saison, and I scored a 32. You know what I mean? So it was like the score 37 means it's a solid beer. So back to the brewery competition, or the breweries that have kind of their own competitions. It's pretty cool. They've got medals. So like, say if you score a 40 or above, you win a gold medal. But out of 50 breweries, all 50 could win a gold medal if all 50 breweries score
over a certain
number. So it's not like, you know, when you there could be there's or 2,000.
There could be more than one winner. Is what
correct.
I guess.
Yeah, they basically said whether one brewery enters in the competition or every brewery in America.
So the year that Pabst won their blue ribbon, more than one beer could have got a blue ribbon that year.
Correct.
Yeah. All right.
Now back then I don't know, but my point is it's not like you have you use a dog competition. It's not like Best in Show, and you know
they do have that though.
I mean, Milwaukee's Best would not call it best if they didn't win a ribbon somewhere.
Sure, yeah, I guess, but it goes back to the being in the right It's back to the right category. You know, I'm sitting here shaking my head to this, you know, Old English, but for a malt liquor, it is probably one of my more favorite ones. So
anyway, to say you're never drinking it again, I disagree.
I don't know. Now, I remember this better in my head.
I've written this question down and meant to ask you twice. How many different styles of beer and what's the question? How many different styles are they judging? How many different categories can you enter?
So from what I understand, it's a shit ton. But if they don't have a shit ton of entries, they put it into a smaller box and condense it.
A shit ton. So if you score a 37 in the shit ton category,
that's
pretty good.
Take IPA, you can do IPA, specialty IPA, fruit IPA, and there's all these subcategories. But if they don't have enough people for each category, they'll just lump them into IPA.
Okay. And is there now? I know Chris said he had a kitchen sink that he called it a porter. So is there a catch-all category, or you can just say, hey, this is an open? Is there an open category, I guess?
They do like experimental beers, which is typically where most of my stuff winds up because I just like to throw a bunch of shit into mine. So they do have that for kind of a catch-all. Like if yours doesn't fit or if you're unsure of what style you're brewing, just enter it into that just to kind of be safe, so the judges aren't looking for something that isn't in your brew style.
I gotcha. You don't want to enter something in a lager, even though it was a lager. If you go, really, I was making a lager, but I knew what I was trying to do.
Well, they have like a smoked lager category, and like I said, if they don't have enough smoked lager entries, then they'll just turn it into specialty lager. And then if they don't have enough specialty lagers of those, the branches of the tree get smaller and smaller. They're not going to give out a trophy to some, or a ribbon or whatever people win for just because you were the only entry in a certain category.
Right.
Bullshit.
I'm telling you the truth.
All right. So when you're brewing, I'm going to ask this two different ways because I'll ask Joey. I'm guessing, Joey, have you ever brewed for a competition? And I'm just gonna say I'm gonna guess you never have. And Chris, I'm guessing you have. So when you haven't, so you didn't go, all right, this beer I'm gonna make today is for a competition.
Oh yeah, I said it was by coincidence though. I just happened to be I planned on brewing at that same time, and then we said, okay, well, we're gonna do this competition.
And then you did the kitchen sink, right? And that's what I was basing it on. Where I'm assuming what Joey did is say, I've got these beers already made, I'll enter one. So, okay. So now my question is for Joey, because you own the store and people buy ingredients. So what do you do different? If you were going to say this beer I'm brewing today or that I'm going to work on this recipe today, and I might not do the final product for, a couple of months or more because I want to perfect this. If I'm trying to make a competition quality brew, what are the few things that I would change or would start? I don't even know how to ask the question, but you see what I'm saying? I mean,
I know.
Is it an ingredient or a recipe? What do I do different than if I'm just making a beer for me?
I'd brew to style. I mean, simply put, I would brew to style. I would get I forget who makes a book. It's like Brewing Classic Beers or Classic Styles. I truly would just get a recipe out of one of those books that is a very true, authentic beer that probably 10 other people are entering in the same recipe because they're getting the same book. I'm going to sound like I'm being a jerk when I say this, but I have noticed with homebrew competitions, they are looking for authenticity when it comes to styles. So they don't like it when you go, they would rather pick a beer that's true to style that was popular in the 1980s than a beer that's 2018 that's just awesome, amazing beer. They're going to score that lower than some beer that's true to style. So if I was trying to win a homebrew competition, I would brew true to style, and being that without talking myself up, I feel like being a good home brewer, I could brew a very good beer because of all the brewing knowledge that I have using that true to style recipe. Like I said, it sounds cliche, but I wouldn't come up with my own recipe. I truly would just get one out of a book that I guarantee those judges have seen 100 times, and they're just looking for a good example. It doesn't have all flavors in beer, like an under attenuated beer or DMS or any of the off flavors that they
So
put
what you're saying is you would find a recipe and you would perfect that. You would work over a few months.
I wouldn't even do that. I would just brew it. I would just brew it very well, in the sense of, like, I'm not saying that new home brewers can't brew good beer. I'm just saying, being that I brewed for a long time, I feel like I could brew. My brewing procedure would be better, but I would pick a recipe that I wouldn't come up with.
Well, I have another question, but let me ask Chris the same question. Chris, if you were going to prepare for a contest, let's say it's 6 months away, and this is a contest you want to do well in, what would you start doing today? What would you try to do to, win and or get a high score?
I'd go similar process, but I would, instead of going for a specific recipe, I would just look at what specific traits match the style that I wanted to brew. Like for the competition that we just did down at Rheingeist, I did what was a juicy double IPA, like some of like the was it New England IPAs, like that style, but more of like a fruity, like that type of thing.
Right.
But you can go to like Brewers Association. I have the website pulled up right now. And like under juicy or hazy imperial double IPA, they have this list of criteria right next to it, like color, straw to deep gold, clarity, low to very high degree of cloudiness, perceived malt aroma and flavor, perceived bitterness, fermentation characteristics, body, They give you the original gravity notes. You have alcohol by volume. I mean, they have everything laid out for you on these sites and they have almost every style. I mean, I see like at least 50 or 60
the judges are
styles.
taught this stuff, obviously. So this is part of the certified judging. You're learning some of this.
See, that's where it gets a little tricky. Is they have different judges. They have like grandmaster, certified, and I'm sorry, they've got people like me who
just go use Google,
volunteer, and that are Google and stuff. So when you get those 3 judges, you're getting a combined score between the 2. Typically speaking, there are a couple very highly qualified judges. They've been doing it a long time. They're great at it. Don't get me wrong. That's why I'm saying I would read those style guidelines, and I would truly pull. I just looked at the author was Jamil Brewing Classic Styles book, because those judges have tasted those beers a zillion times, and I would give you an example of that didn't have any off flavors. That was just, as a brewer, you did a good job. And I bet you through those brewers or those judges that have been brewers for years, they're going to score me pretty well. And then the ones that are hitting Google and they're going, oh, multi, should it be hoppy? What kind of color should it be? The ones that are hitting Google, they're going to see that I nailed all those points as well. So, I mean, that's really what it comes down to. That's the only thing about me, which I've always used a comparison brewing's like art. And Mark, you are right in the sense of it is opinion based when you're talking taste. However, they are looking for certain traits in the beer. And I feel like the IPAs that I enter in are more new wave than classic. And those judges point blank aren't looking for new wave styles, in my opinion. I could be totally wrong because I'm being a hater, but I truly feel like they're looking for more classic examples of an IPA than what's popular now.
Now here's the next thing then. Here's what in my mind, what I would want to see if I'm judging or I'm hearing about a competition. I'd be interested in, and maybe they do this, I would be more interested in, hey, at HBYOB, and I'm just making this up, but hey, for a month, here's this kit. When I say kit, this number of grain, meaning here are the 8 ingredients or the 5 ingredients. And you know what? Everybody take these ingredients and make a beer out of it. And then we're going to taste those, because now it is truly down to the brewing, the
home.
If everyone has the same ingredients and now it's just a matter of who takes them home and makes the best beer out of them, I would find that more interesting of quality of a brewer necessarily than someone just made a better recipe than me.
The Homebrew Club I'm part of did exactly that. They had an ESB and a stout from the Classic Brewing Styles book, but every single home brewer brewed it. And I did that same recipe where they even talked to me and said, hey, can we do it from your store? Because we don't even want to make sure, not only do we want to make sure that you have it in stock, we don't just want 2-row. We want to make sure it's the same breeze 2-row. We want to make sure it's the
sure.
So they did exactly
now you're really grading how well they brewed.
They came to me to make sure that I could fulfill it and that I wasn't changing any ingredients or anything. So that was actually a very, very cool thing to do. So I mean that was what they did.
Now, did you judge it, or did somebody? I mean, how did that turn? I mean, or do you know? Did they have 10 people, or they have?
I would say based on the customers I had come in, I want to say like 10 or 15 probably did it, or at least 10 or 15 recipes did it. Some people, because they had 2 different styles, and some of them brewed both of them. Some just brewed one, but probably 10 or 15 customers.
Right. See, that to me would be fun one day to say, someone say, hey, you're going to judge 15 beers, all made with the same recipe, but all brewed, obviously, however they want to do it. I mean, they had the same ingredients, and then I would say, hey, this one tasted the best.
That was the funny thing. The last homebrew competition we did, and I made a joke to Chris, they wanted your recipe to the T, every ounce, every ingredient, the ratios you put it in, mash. And I told Chris, I'm like, I didn't tell them shit. Shouldn't they know what's in my fucking beer? Aren't they the judges? And what I should have done? I said, so I kind of was a jerk and just wrote the basics.
None of your effing business.
Because first place got to have their beer on tap, but we were able to get 90 other good recipes. I thought was funny. But I know it's not the way it was, but it was. I just thought it was funny.
So there are contests, but you said that was a local thing. So that was truly just how someone brewed.
I think it was just so they knew had a fair understanding that just to make sure you were following guidelines and things like that was the reason why they wanted the recipe. Obviously, if you're using, I can't even think of something that you would go to completely rogue with. They want to make sure they didn't want to make sure you were they were eventually going to brew one of those recipes. They want to make sure it was feasible for them to potentially brew.
Okay. Now, only because you said it earlier where you said you didn't want to pat yourself on the back, but you just think you brew better than someone else. So let's say you're in one of these contests, and I'll ask both of you. You're in one of these contests where you have the same 5 ingredients as everyone else. What would be the 1 or 2 little tricks that you would do that because you would think, this is going to give me something no one else is doing? What's a little trick that a home brewer might do to make their beer a little better than someone else using the same ingredients?
Keep it simple. Honestly, I think a lot of home brewers, when they're doing competitions, they start coming to me for filtration, water chemistry, making starters. They'll, build a water chemistry profile from RO water. They'll do this, they'll do that. They'll invest more in home brewing equipment, thinking that having pumps and all of these different things will help them brew a better beer. But quite honestly, I feel sometimes when you overcomplicate beer, sometimes in ways it works the opposite. So my advice, honestly, would be just to keep it more simple and not overcomplicate a recipe, especially if you're doing a simple beer. Sometimes you can add jalapenos and cornflakes and cinnamon and every grain on the rack.
Okay, but that's back to, though, unfortunately, I guess what I'm saying is this is one of those recipes where you have these 5 ingredients. You can use no different ingredients. So it's truly only brewing style. Chris, what might you do in your brewing style to go, hey, this might give me, and I get it. Hey, back to fantasy sports. We've all done that thing. Man, this pick's going to give me what I need. And sometimes it just doesn't. And every once in a while, you're like, yes, that paid off. So if you were to brew in this kind of a competition, what would you do in a brewing process? You would go, hey, this might be, the lottery ticket that makes me the best of these 15 people, because I'm going to do this during the brewing process.
I would say, at least for me, I would try to not cut as many corners. I agree with Joey in that simplicity will probably win out, but I would say that in some instances, like once we as home brewers, once you start doing it for a little while, I wouldn't say that we get lazy. It's just that we understand the differences, or like how the taste will, or how not meeting certain metrics will affect our beer.
My point is, Joey said, keep it simple. I get it. Let's say 15 of you are now keeping it simple. And I think Joey said it. I mean, there is water, there's filter. Is there a little trick is there hey, I'm going to ferment it an extra week. Or do you do the opposite? You say, hey, I'm going to go only 4 days. I'm going to, is there something that you think you do that other brewers maybe don't?
I would say, if you want me to answer a question, I would say it is simply use fresh ingredients. Use the freshest ingredients you can find. Make sure you allot yourself plenty of time for fermentation. I do recommend kegging them instead of bottling them, simply because they will turn out clear beer. So if you're wanting, especially when you're entering to a competition that we're jostling around, bottle them up probably 2 or 3 days before the competition. That way you can sample them to make sure they're at the proper carbonation level. That way you're not doing what me and Chris accidentally did, and we bottled the day before the competition and probably should have boosted up our CO2 levels on our beers, and that's fine. Just simple things like bottle multiple batches over the course of like a week and sample them and see where, work on your carbonation level. Is it too high? Is it too low? Things like that. Same thing.
I'm saying you have 6 months. And again, I know you just said fresh ingredients. I'm saying we all walked into HBYOB on Sunday and picked up our little kit, and we now have, 6 months to turn this kit into the best beer we can.
Probably the biggest thing would be fermentation temperatures starts to become huge when you start talking competitions.
And that's what I'm looking for. What little thing can a home brewer change?
Having a
make his different.
That's what I'm saying. Don't cut corners. Like we would just take our fermentation chamber and then put it in a room that's not next to an outside wall. We would say that, all right, well, it's going to be close to room temperature, so that should be good enough. But instead of just saying that it's going to be in that range, we would just put it at that exact temperature.
Right. Well, I guess you have a controlled temperature area where you can ferment your stuff, right? I mean,
I guess backing up, that's where I would say, not that I think that I'm a better brewer than newer brewers. I've just got more gadgets in the sense of I now temperature control. I cold crash my beers. I keg my beers. There's a lot of things that I just do.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. Right.
I don't think it's necessarily that I'm a better brewer. It's just that
you have more stuff.
I've not only gone through the equipment that was a waste of money, but I've also went into the equipment that was
that actually worked.
It's like, wow, fermentation temperatures, keeping them consistent, cold crashing your beers, those are huge, in my opinion. Being able to dry hop, and clear beer, that's where kegging starts to kind of come into play. There's certain things along the way that I've come across and then I've lost just because if it didn't seem like I was producing a better product from it, I didn't see the need to keep it anymore. So that's where I'm not necessarily a better brewer, but back to mashing, making sure you're hitting your mashing temperatures properly. Just things like that where I use a hop strainer basket in my brew pot so that I don't have a whole lot of hops. There's just a lot of little gadgets that over the years through trial and error that I feel make my beers the best. If they don't add to my beers, I don't use them. If they don't take away from my beers, then I don't use them.
Well, I think you both answered the question because I think people listening to us that are home brewers just, they're looking for little tips to just make their own beer better. So, neither one of you mentioned water. I think Joey kind of said filter and all that, but, tap water versus bottled water versus spring water versus Colorado spring water. I mean, you still think all don't cut corners and temperatures and all that probably mean more than the water itself, even though out of 5 gallons of beer, 5 gallons of that is actual water.
I don't know about the water chemistry per se. I would say that if I had to choose between, something that I wanted to focus more on, I would focus more on the fermentation temperature, versus the water chemistry than anything else.
All right. The last question on competitions is in the Dayton area. Let's just go there. I mean, what's the next big competition in our area? And I'll say Dayton, Cincinnati, or Columbus. I mean, is it one a year? Is there one pretty regularly? And either question, what's the next big one, or what's the next one in our area that if a customer or a listener would want to maybe participate in?
We were just talking. I was down at the store on Saturday, and we were telling one of the customers about the Beer and Sweat that's coming up. When is it again, Joey? 16th, 17th of August, something like that?
Oh, goodness.
And that's in Cincinnati.
Yes, it's going to be held at the Marriott at the airport. So, not technically Cincinnati, since it's a little bit of
right? Yeah, right. Is it an all night thing, or is it you stay the day? I mean.
Go ahead.
It's all day. I mean, you show up at about, let's say 9, 10 o'clock in the morning to get your kegs and stuff in, find your spot where you're supposed to, have everything all set up. And then the actual awards portion, I think, isn't until, when was it, Joey? 6, 7 o'clock, because they have dinner.
Okay.
And all that for you.
So that's the next big one in our area.
As far as we know,
so it is. I'm a spokesperson right now. It is Ohio's biggest homebrewing competition. That's keg only.
There you go.
It's keg only. So is there not one in Dayton? Does Dayton have any kind of a brew contest?
I'm sure they do. Like I said, Homebrewing Association is a great place to look them up.
Okay. All right. So you people out there listening.
But if you want to hang out with me and Chris and have a good time, drink beer, eat good food,
are there vendors set up at these? I mean, does HBYOB have a booth where they can go and see or pick up a brochure or anything?
I don't really remember seeing any.
I'm not saying maybe you aren't there, but are there? I mean, it seems like something that you would go to. I mean, I know if you go to a big poker event, there's a hall with poker things and stuff like that, and I don't know. So it's not necessarily a place where you can go and look at vendor stuff.
I didn't see anything like that there.
Then damn it, set up a big booth. Let's get this going.
But like I said, if you want to go hang out with me and Chris, drink some good beer, tons of home brewers, super fun. I think last year they had over 200 entries, Chris?
Oh yeah.
And I think me and you tried virtually every one.
We had a few samples. We had one. We had a few.
And if you ahead of time you get a discounted hotel room, it's a blast. I highly, like I said, as much as it sounds like I've been kind of negative about homebrewing competitions, back to like the pool leagues, comparison, it's super fun because if it wasn't for that, think of another event. Think of another way 200 plus homebrewers would get together and have fun. I mean, it takes the competition.
We didn't even mention that. Is there a cost to enter your beer?
I forget what the cost was.
I thought it was like $10 for your first keg and then $2 for every keg after, if I remember correctly.
It was super cheap. I mean,
it was.
So the big expense is the motel, really, if you're spending the night.
Yeah. Which this year we're definitely getting a motel.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're gonna have to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe Easy will have to.
So maybe that'll be the next competition. How many sleeping bags can we fit into a hotel room?
We'll have to bring our mics and stuff down there. We'll do a podcast.
We'll do a live broadcast. I've got the equipment now. I think I can do.
We'll have a rock, paper, scissors tournament to see who puts their credit card for the deposit on the hotel room.
All right. Easy will have to look into that. I don't think they want my canned beer.
Yeah, I'm not sure the pre-hop cans is in the.
But doesn't mean it wouldn't judge. I'm guessing that you sneak one in. Who knows?
I'd like to see that. That would be great.
That would be. Yeah.
All right. Let's go to our question of the week because we're running out of time. So we'll make this quick. Customer in the store ask, I do not have time to bottle my beer this week. Which is what the instructions tell me to do. What should I do since I do not have the time? Can I wait another week?
Yes.
Anybody?
So based on the conversation, or I'm trying to process the question. It sounds to me like they're afraid that the beer could get like oxidized or something.
Right.
If they don't, because the instructions told them to do it, on week 2 or whatever it says. I've had a beer in a fermenter for 1 year. It was perfectly fine.
Right.
I would say if you're going to go more than a couple of months, transfer it to a secondary with minimal headspace. Other than that,
right.
Don't worry.
An extra week or 2 to me means nothing.
Nope. Nope. There's
my argument might be he might be bottled a week too early anyway. Meaning, it might not have fermented quickly enough. I mean, there's all kinds of things. Meaning, if me, I'm a minimal brewer, but I would say, if anything, whenever I had the worst beer I did, usually it's because I didn't let it ferment enough. And usually the best beer was the stuff I thought, oh, Lord, it's been in there a month. I'm in trouble. And that would be the best stuff. So
most people are concerned that the beer is going to start getting oxidized in the primary after fermentation is completed. Luckily, because the yeast eats the sugars and it produces CO2, there's actually CO2 still in the beer that will create a protective layer. Best advice I can give is don't open the fermenter. Just leave it alone. Get to it when you get back. It'll be perfectly fine. Don't worry about it. Just don't fidget with it. Don't move it around. Don't open the lid. Just leave it alone. Unless you're going to transfer to a secondary.
Right. It's like a marriage. Just leave it alone. It'll be okay.
Yep.
All right.
Perfect analogy.
That's right. You start messing with it too much, it will go bad. Just let it go. And the longer you go, it's probably better. Next week's show, we're going to talk about dry hopping, which I don't know. I mean, sounds like something when I was a teenager I'd be interested in. But we will discuss it, next week. I've had fun. I'll be the first to admit, when I realized we were going to talk about competitions, I thought, this is going to be a 30-minute show, but we did it. We made it fairly, and I'm interested, I guess, not to enter anything, but I think I'm interested in going down and watching you guys be judged. That sounds fun to me now.
By the time they give the reports, we've had enough beer. We don't give a shit.
Exactly. There you go. And also, depending on who's there, you might find some folks that are a little bit salty about their scores.
Yeah.
And that is a fun spectacle to behold.
Well, I mean, okay, so you're saying there are a few people that show up expecting to get a 37, and then when they get a 27,
they're going to be who brewed 5, 6, 7, 10 beers There was one guy I think we're close to 20, if I remember correctly, Chris.
Oh,
Yes.
Specifically for that competition. It would be disappointing.
Dude, do you get a
disappointing?
Does everyone get a participation ribbon?
I got a shitty T-shirt.
Oh yeah, you did get a T-shirt. That's right.
And I had to pay for it.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Then you didn't get a T-shirt. You bought a T-shirt.
I guess that is the way the cookie crumbled. I had beer all day. What did you expect? I was going home with a T-shirt.
Did it say my buddy went to a brew competition and all I got was a shitty shirt?
I don't know, but we might have to bring them with us.
We'll take some HBYOB shirts down, so we'll be all right. All right, everybody. Like I said, I enjoyed it. Like I said, we'll talk about it when the competition gets closer, and maybe we'll get some other local brewers down there that are making their brews with HBYOB.com ingredients. Chris, give me your quick opinion on your bad beer of the week, and any other comments where people can reach you.
I would say that this was this was kind of a blast from the past because I haven't had this in, gosh, it's probably been at least 5 years since I've had Milwaukee's Best, but not something I would, I would say lawnmower beer. That's what this would be, lawnmower beer. Otherwise, you can find me on Twitter at Chris Allen FFWX, or you might find me down at the store, depending on if Joey wants to take the day off.
There you go. All right, Joey, owner of HBYOB. Give me your final opinion on your furniture polish can you had there, and where people can get a hold of you if they have any other questions.
So the beer was better in my head, but other than nostalgia, I'm done with it. I think I drank my last one. No, sorry, Old English 800. I'm sure you probably run a trophy for your beer, but I'm done. It was only time I almost didn't finish my beer.
Show us the can one more time. Show us the can one more time.
I almost did not finish it on.
Oh man,
Chris is a can guy. That can's got to be 2 thumbs up. The can is actually
that's all.
Can't hate the can.
It actually tastes like a can.
Can't hate the can.
The beer tasted like the can it came in, but
you're right.
You can find me.
Not hate the can.
You can find me at HBYOB.com, and all the links are in the description here on YouTube.
All right. I'm agreeing with Chris. The Milwaukee's Best Light. I bought a 12-pack. I knew I could kill a 12-pack of this. Memorial Day, and it was a hot weekend here in Ohio. I went through a lot of these out mowing the grass. The pub beer I thought was very good. It's just it's an above average beer. Again, same thing, probably a lawnmower type beer. I'd recommend it. The can's a little. Hey, the can is so plain, it's just entertaining. So thanks for coming out tonight. Again, we'll talk to you a little as we get closer to a competition. Maybe some of you'll join us out there. Next week we will be dry hopping, maybe live on the air. I don't know. Join us, everybody. Say goodnight.